Hello. I was hoping that we would have time in class to show you synthetic division of polynomials. Unfortunately, we just don't have the time. Synthetic division is a shortcut to dividing polynomials. Eventually, I will show you long division and synthetic division in more detail in class next time we meet. Okay. Now, synthetic division ideally only works when the divisor has a degree of 1. So the divisor is what we are dividing by. In this case, our divisor is x minus 5 because we are dividing by x minus 5. And notice that it has a degree of 1. And ideally, you want a leading coefficient of 1. So if I was dividing by x minus 5, the first thing you want to do is you want to set your divisor equal to 0. So I'm dividing by x minus 5. So when I set it equal to 0, x equals 5. 5 is a number that is going to go in this box. The second thing I want to do is I want to list my coefficients in descending order. Descending order means that you're going from the highest power to the lowest power. Well, my highest power is x cubed. The leading coefficient is 1. My next highest power is x squared, so my coefficient is 2. My next one is x, so my my coefficient is 3. And then no x's would be 4. Okay. You always drop the first term, so that's step number 3, is drop the first coefficient. So my first coefficient that I'm dropping is the number 1. My next step is then I multiply the coefficient that I dropped in step 3 and multiply by the number in the box. That's step 1. The number that I dropped was 1. I'm going to multiply by 5. So 1 times 5 is 5. And then from there, the next step is I add or subtract the column. A column is going up and down, so I'm adding that -2 plus 5. So that -2 plus 5 is 3. Okay, and then the very last step is I'm going to repeat the process. So I'm going to repeat step, oops, I just realized that I wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. That was silly of me. I meant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Step 6 is I'm going to repeat step 4 and 5 again. So the number that I dropped is number 3. I'm going to multiply by the number in the box. Okay. So the number in the box is 5. So 3 times 5 is 15. And then I add and subtract going down. -3 plus 15 is 12. The number that I drop was the number 12. I multiply by the number in the box. The number in the box is 5. So 12 times 5 is 60. And I add and subtract going down. 4 plus 60 is 64. Now, the very last number is always your remainder. And the 1, the 3, and the 12 in front of it represent the new leading coefficients to your quotient, your answer. This orange one on top represented x cubed. So the one on the bottom represents x squared plus 3x plus 12 with the remainder of positive 64. Your coefficients are always one less. So our answer is x squared plus 3x plus 12 with the remainder of 64 over what we were dividing by. We are dividing by x minus 5. I know that was a little bit of a challenge, right? So let's try it again. This is 2x to the 5th minus x cubed plus 4x squared minus 5, and it's dividing by x plus 2. Since we are dividing by x plus 2 is our divisor. And step number 1, I always set our divisor equal to 0, and I solve for x. That is the number that goes in the box. Step number 2, I want to write the coefficient, okay, of my polynomial here. So I'm going to drop or list the coefficients in descending order. So I'm going to put 2 because it represents x to the 5th. But be very careful. Notice there are no x to the 4th. So you have to put 0 to represent x to the 4th. Then -1 to represent x cubed. The 4 would represent x squared. And again, be careful because there are no x's. So you have to put 0. And then you put -5. Always drop the very first term, which in this case is the number 2. And now, whatever number you drop, that multiplies to the number in the box. So I'm going to multiply 2 times -2, which is -4. And then I'm going to add and subtract. 0 minus 4 is -4. Whatever number I dropped, it multiplies to the number in the box. Well, I dropped a -4, so -4 times -2 is 8. And then I add and subtract going down. -1 plus 8 is 7. Whatever number I dropped, it multiplies to the number in the box. So 7 times -2 is -14. And I add and subtract going down. 4 minus 14 is -10. Whatever number I dropped, it multiplies to the number in the box. So -10 times -2 is 20. And then going up and down, 0 plus 20 is 20. Whatever number I drop, it multiplies to the number in the box. So I dropped a 20. 20 times -2 is -40. And I add and subtract going down. -5 and -40 makes -45. This last number right here represents the remainder. The last number is always the remainder. So in this case, there's a remainder of -45. So when I write my answer, okay, I know I have a remainder of -45, but what do all these other numbers, that 2, the -4, the 7, the -10, and the 20, what do those represent? Those represent the coefficients in front of the polynomial for your quotient, your answer. So here, since this orange 2 represented x to the 5th, this is always going to be 1 less. So this would be 2x to the 4th minus 4x cubed plus 7x squared minus 10x plus 20. So when I write my final answer, is 2x to the 4th minus 4x cubed plus 7x squared minus 10x plus 20 with a remainder of -45 over what we were dividing by. Remember, we were dividing by x plus 2 earlier. So let's take a look at this last one. I want you to try setting this up. So I want you to think first, what's our divisor? And what number is going to go in the box? Well, we are dividing by x plus 3. So when I set it equal to 0, I get x equals 3. That is the number that goes in the box. Now I want you to think what our coefficients are, our leading our coefficients that I'm going to list going across. Well, there's a 3x to the 4th. There's a -1 x cubed. There is no x squares. So see how there's 0 x squares? You need to put 0. There's a -10 that represents x and a -15. So what do we always do next? We always drop the first term. And whatever number we drop, we multiply by the number in the box. So we dropped a 3, so 3 times 3 is 9. And we add and subtract going down. -1 plus 9 is 8. Whatever number we dropped, we multiply by the number in the box. So 8 times 3 is 24. 0 plus 24 is 24. Whatever number you dropped multiplies to the number in the box. 24 times 3 is 72. -10 plus 72 is 62. I make these problems up, so just know sometimes they get a little big. Whatever number you dropped multiplies to the number in the box. So 62 times 3 is, I'm not so quick on this one, it's 186, and -15 plus 186 is 171. What does that last number always represent? This last number always represents the remainder. So what do the numbers in front of 171 represent? They represent the coefficients to your quotient, right? Your quotient is your answer to the division problem. This 3 right here represented x to the 4th. So the 3 in your answer is always 1 less, it's x cubed. So it's 3x cubed plus 8x squared plus 24x plus 62 with our remainder. So when I write my answer, I write 3x squared plus 8x squared plus 24x plus 62 with my remainder, which is 171 over what I was dividing by. We were dividing by x minus 3. All right. I know that this is not the most ideal situation. I was trying to be short and to the point. Synthetic division, again, is a way of doing a shortcut to long division, which is something that we had to skip due to circumstances, but we'll come back to it. Hopefully this makes sense. If not, remember I have tutoring Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Please come in for extra help.